What's up, everybody? It's Andrea. Today, we are super excited to see Sarek again. Picard uses some master diplomacy, and we ask the question, who even cares? Stick with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today, we're talking Season 5, Episode 7, Unification Part 1. This episode was written by Rick Berman and Michael Piller and directed by Les Landau. To the Federation's surprise, Ambassador Spock has traveled to Romulus. Fearing he has defected, they send Captain Picard and Data on a covert mission to determine why. What are your initial thoughts on this episode, Shereese?
My first thought was, oh crap, it's another Sarek episode. I hope this one is better than the last one. So that was my thought. What about you?
I mean, I'm with you on that. I always skip these two episodes, and I wrote in my notes, I was bored by Sarek in the episode Sarek, and I wasn't interested in seeing him again at all.
Yeah. We talked last week about how we skip episodes sometimes, even though we love the show. We've been watching it forever, for our whole entire lives, basically. There are episodes that we just routinely skip because they don't bring us as much joy. And then there are episodes that we watched so much that we have them memorized, like every scene, every line, every look, right?
Yes.
This for me falls solidly in the skip category. and that is largely due to the episode Sarek, which was just boring. It was just really, really boring. It was not entertaining in the least. So the thumbnails from this episode and from the next episode show this episode shows Sarek. I think in the next one, maybe shows Spock or something. But finding out that Sarek was coming back, I was just like, I can't imagine this not being boring. Like, I hope I'm wrong, because last week I usually skip that episode, which is the game, because I think it's a little cringy. Mm-hmm. But when I rewatched it this time, I loved it. And there were not nearly as many weird, awkward moments as I recalled. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in with an open mind. This may blow my mind, totally surprise me.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Was it though? Did it though?
No, it didn't. It didn't, but it was possible until the episode ended, when it was no longer possible.
Yes,
at that point, it was like,
so this episode still sucks. This episode, I mean, I'm going to give my final thoughts on this. It's slow. It's boring. It's unclear. And did I mention it's slow? It's just like,
this is very much a MacGuffin episode. There's like nothing.
Yes.
There's nothing that's really exciting, or there's nothing that to focus our attention on. And also for me, like, I know I vaguely remember how it all works out, but not really like in detail.
Yeah.
However, the idea that Spock is a defector to me is just laughable.
Yeah.
It's like it's like Captain Kirk being a defector. You're like, he's not,
or
he's
Picard.
Really not.
There's no
or
way.
Or Picard being a defector, or Riker. You're like, he's just not. So the whole premise of, oh my gosh, Spock has gone over to the dark side. I was like, no, he's over there doing something for the good of all mankind.
Yeah.
Like, he's not turning his back on this industry that he's like so passionate about. So even that just felt very like unbelievable for me.
Yeah. I have some trivia on this episode before we jump in. I was totally gobsmacked when I read this. This episode was nominated for an Emmy Award, but it made sense for outstanding individual achievement in music composition for a series. So it's like, oh, okay, the music. I was like, it wasn't for the writing.
You're like, this episode almost won an award, or won an amazing award, because they had really great sets. You're like, okay. There it is. There it is.
This is the first time that we see Spock outside of the original series and maybe like some TOS movies. And it's the first time that the Federation has visited Romulus, which is kind of cool. Now, unification was a suggestion made by Frank Mancuso Sr., the then chairman of Paramount Pictures, noting that 1991 would mark the 25th anniversary of Star Trek first airing. Mancuso proposed to Leonard Nimoy that the Star Trek, The Next Generation, and the original series should find a way to work together to mark the occasion. So I was like, oh, okay. You just needed a way for Spock to come back. And how are you going to bring him back? Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense.
And
but
at
really,
the start, did we need that? No, we didn't. But at the start, when the episode opens with the commemoration to Gene Roddenberry, I thought to myself, because later on in the episode, spoiler alert, Sarek dies, I thought, oh, maybe they came up with this storyline to commemorate Gene Roddenberry or something. That's what I thought. I didn't realize it was the 25th year anniversary of Star Trek in existing.
Yeah.
But I also thought to myself, I feel like this episode does not commemorate him well. So it makes a lot of sense that he had passed away in the previous episode and they commemorated him here, but it wasn't in the storyline, because this episode doesn't, to me, capture the imagination and creativity and dynamic nature of the world that Gene Roddenberry built. I mean, you do see Romulus, you do see Klingon, you do see the Federation. So there is this mixture of political elements and different aliens, but I felt like this was not the quintessential episode of like, this is Trek to me. And probably just because I was bored to tears. And when I think of Trek, I don't think boring. I think interesting or thought-provoking or exciting or like other positive words.
Sure.
So I did not know that. And that makes a lot of sense. And I think it is cool that they wanted to commemorate it. And I will say they did have a few crossover. I think they had like 3 crossovers between TOS and all of TNG that I can recall. There was the first episode when like Bones came on board. Which like we don't really remember because that episode was not great. Then
that was Encounter at Farpoint. Yeah.
Then this is episode with Spock, and then we have Scotty who comes back, and that episode I really like.
That's a really fun one.
That's a good one.
That's a super fun one. Yeah.
And I kind of wish this one would have been that one, because that to me would have been a better commemoration, because it's a legit good episode with a character we love.
Yes, it really is. This one it felt shoehorny, but that's fine. But yes, the episode does give a nod to the passing of Gene Roddenberry in a really tasteful and lovely pre-episode. So like a pre-roll that just said in memoriam, and it had Gene Roddenberry 1921 to 1991. And played over it was just a very simple like Star Trek theme for like 5 seconds or so. And it was really lovely. I thought it was really, really nice. Now, what blows my mind is that season 5 commemorated the 25th anniversary since the beginning of Star Trek, the original series. And now the Star Trek original series aired 53 years ago this year. So it's like, oh my God, so many years have passed even since. It just blows my mind that it's still going. And you've got Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds and Star Trek Picard and Discovery and Enterprise and Voyager and Deep Space Nine and all this stuff. It just has snowballed into this gigantic machine that continues to crank out. Like I watched Picard, the season 2 finale just aired, and like I've seen every episode of Picard. I've seen every episode of Lower Decks, which is hilarious and really funny and really great, and like that stays within Star Trek canon. And it happens, by the way, at the same time period. It's like set in the same time period as TNG, so they make lots and lots of TNG crossover jokes, which is really great. But Gene Roddenberry, love him or hate him or both, he did create something truly magical and spectacular. And it's the entire reason that we are here to talk about this.
Yeah.
But guess what? We're back to terraforming.
I thought it was so funny when it was like, I was like, another terraforming mission has been canceled, but that's probably for the best. Yeah. We haven't had a lot of good luck with those in the past. So let's
Riker's like, damn it. I was hoping to pick somebody up, but okay. Fine. I guess we can move on. Yes. Fleet Admiral Brackett comes aboard and tells Picard that the mission has been scrapped because something top secret has popped up. Something pop secret has popped up. So now I want popcorn. So 3 weeks ago, Ambassador Spock disappeared and left no word of his destination. And 2 days ago, he was spotted on Romulus. And it's like, wait, what? Which is also kind of cool because she doesn't say it was Ambassador Spock. She says an ambassador disappeared and left no word. And 2 days ago, he was spotted on Romulus. And then we see a very, very blurry image of a couple of people.
This grainy, pixelated,
and it's nice image. It's nice to know that spy satellites still in the 24th century take grainy AF photos. And they did
now they're taking over like 50 million light years instead of like 1,000 miles or whatever.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, but still, it's still a thing. So they do the computer magnify, clean up the, the like image or whatever.
Clean
and
up
we
the
see
distortions.
It's Spock. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit, Spock has defected. Oh.
Or has he?
Or has he? Yeah, we don't know. And, Ambassador Brackett basically says, we're sending you to Romulus to find him and find out why he's left and what he's doing on Romulus. Yeah.
But if he was really a defector, it'd be like, find him and take him out, or find him and bring him back, not find him and have some tea and chat and see how's he feeling today?
Like, maybe what are you doing here? Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah. So I put in my notes, because I think this is where it cuts to commercial. When you see Spock's face, I put in my notes, if I could believe for 1 second that Spock was actually a traitor, this moment would be very shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like there would have been other ways to bring Spock back in ways that would have been like, oh, Spock is here in TNG. This is like a huge momentous occasion. Instead, it's like, here's this completely unbelievable thing that this character who would never do this is doing, so it doesn't track. It's like, oh,
yeah.
all right,
Like
well,
if it was some kind of like Vulcan is on the edge of destruction, or even, Romulan, the Romulus is like going to war against the Federation or some colony or whatever. And like everything is falling apart and we're right on the brink of war. And there's one ambassador who can save it all. But like, we need the Enterprise to zoom this ambassador over to the situation. And then the ambassador gets on the transporter pad and it's Spock. That'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like, yeah, that'd be like a total freak out moment, total freak out. But here it was like, oh, it's Spock, but Spock wouldn't, what? So it's a weird feeling.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally get that. It's very like, okay. Now I'm going to just sort of gloss over some stuff quickly because this episode is so freaking slow and boring. Like we really don't need to go beat by beat, but like Picard ends up meeting with Sarek and his wife Perrin to talk to their son to talk to Sarek to figure out, like, do you know why Spock might have defected? And I do love that Perrin is still as fabulous as ever with her 20-pound necklaces. Mm-hmm. She looks baller. She does. The woman.
I love her headbands that go over her ears. Those are cute.
In fashion, the clothes wear you or you wear the clothes. And she wears these clothes. And I'm telling you, if I had a necklace on like that, that necklace would be wearing me. It wouldn't be fierce and fabulous. And let me tell you, I'm only 5'1" or just a hair under. So I'm really little, but I love big statement jewelry and I would never be able to pull that off. Like she kills it. She kills it.
Yeah, she slays. She's beautiful. She tells Picard that there was a rift between Spock and Sarek's relationship, which is pretty sad, especially since I think as Data brings up later, the Vulcans are so long lived. So if humans live, like 100 years, Vulcans live like 600, 900 years, like 1,000 years. They live forever. Mm-hmm. And
that's a really long time to be having a rift.
That's a really long time to be having exactly. It's like decades and decades and decades of a rift. And now Sarek is on his deathbed. And Perrin does say that Spock didn't even say goodbye before he left, which was like, ooh, that kind of hurts. And also that, Picard's like, well, maybe was he kidnapped or something? Maybe he was coerced off the planet. And she's like, oh no, he put all his affairs in order, packed a bag and pieced out.
Yeah. He left exactly a note practically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This wasn't like you go to Spock's quarters to find everything like overturned and disheveled. And you're like, uh-oh. No, it's like everything was nice and neat and orderly. He packed a bag and left. So Picard goes to see Sarek and he has to tell him that Spock is missing because Sarek doesn't know. And Sarek's in a really bad way. His emotions have completely taken over him. And there's this conversation that Picard has with Sarek that really broke my heart. This to me was the one memorable part of this whole slow, boring episode. Sarek snaps to and is lucid for a little while and tells Picard that Spock has been taken very much by this like Romulan senator named Pardek, whose ideas of unification between the Romulans and the Vulcans, like Spock is like very taken with this idea and this, Senator Pardek. And when Picard asks Sarek, like, do you think that Spock left to go meet with Pardek? Sarek asks, how do you know about Pardek? And Picard has to take the second to be like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Sarek is suffering from dementia and has forgotten.
Very Dory moment, right?
Yeah, it is.
Finding Nemo Dory moment of like, follow me. Why are you following me?
Yes. Yeah. And I thought to myself, like, how many millions and millions of people have had these heartbreaking conversations with loved ones where they're lucid for a second and then they forget completely, what they're talking about or who you even are. Like, my grandmother on my mom's side had Alzheimer's and dementia, and she completely forgot who I was for, the last like 5 years of her life, where she'd be like, and who's this? It's like, I'm your granddaughter. And I was like 10. So I just kept having my feelings hurt that she didn't know who I was because I was kind of too young to understand. But even just having a teeny little bit of that, it's like, so that was really sad. That made me super sad.
It's heartbreaking and it's extremely frustrating, I'm sure, because you're repeating yourself over and over and you're thinking, why don't you remember? Or like they do remember for 5 seconds of lucidity and then they're gone. And you're like, but where did you go? And what, like, almost like, why are you doing this? Right. When they have no control over it. I can imagine it's sad. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because also you feel helpless because there's literally nothing you or anyone else can do. at all to
And you
fix
just
this
have to
or
have
make it
these,
better.
yeah. And you just have to have these like repetitive conversations with someone as long as you can stand to have those conversations really hard. And it made me so sad when Picard gave him the Vulcan salute and Sarek tried and struggled and couldn't get his hands to do the salute. And he said,
Couldn't remember the words.
Live long and it's just, and he started sobbing. And I'm telling you, Michael Leonard, who plays Sarek, has such command and stage presence and such like timbre to his voice. And to see this like strong man be reduced to sobbing because he can't remember like one word, just the heartbreak translated so poignantly to me, at least across the screen, where I was like, oh, like I just kind of like, you know, clutched my heart a little bit. Like, you poor man, like this once powerful, you know, bronze statue of a man now reduced to like ash. I was just so sad. It was super sad, even though I don't care for the character, but just to see like this decline in anybody is really sad.
It was very well written. And I would say the same thing for the episode Sarek, when they showed kind of the mental distress and Picard was acting it out. That was probably the best scene in the episode. But the episode itself, oh my gosh. So yeah, similar to this one, that was a very powerful moment, but the episode as a whole, not so much. So we have this kind of B plot, and maybe we can just kind of get this out of the way, and then we'll go back to the Sarek thing, because I don't even know how they're related. Maybe they're not. But at the same time, in the cargo bay, we find that there was this metallic object that crashed somewhere, and the Vulcans need help identifying it. And Geordi and Riker, they're all trying to figure it out. And Geordi says, all these pieces we've collected, it's kind of like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle when you don't know what the picture's supposed to be. And I thought to myself, can't the computer just scan all these pieces and then estimate what the object was with like 1,000 guesses a second?
Seems like this is something a computer could have done real quick. Like, computer, extrapolate known positions of ships of this configuration and rebuild a model. Done. Or
even just like scan all these pieces and put them together in the most logical form based on their little edges and what things have been broken off.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Because we don't even know that it is a ship, and it turns out it's not a ship. It's a communications array. But I just thought the computer can do this like so fast. And then I thought, could computers do that in the 90s? Like, would that have been a thought in their head? And I don't know the answer to that. But that was my thought now in our current time frame, is like the computer could have done this a lot faster. I don't see why there's a problem here. Like, you just tell the computer to do it. It just does it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't get it.
Absolutely.
So finishing up this storyline of the array, apparently it was stolen from a junkyard that is being managed by the Zakdorn.
Hey!
So we get kind of a where are they now with the Zakdorn, who I don't remember ever seeing them again. And that's probably
not that I recall. Yes, not that I recall, but they might be in another episode that we routinely skip. We haven't seen Zakdorn since season's 2 peak performance. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And to see that they have sort of different personalities. That's the one thing I don't love about a lot of the aliens that are written. They're so one-dimensional, and they all have the same, you know, like Klingons are all warriors, and all, you know, every single one of them has that like ideal kind of like inbred into them and ingrained into them. But like, you never see a Klingon who's like, you know what? Peace might actually be a better option. Just like how you have people that are all different types. I love to see the Zakdorn. We only see 2 ever, as far as I'm aware, but I could be wrong. But like, you know, Kolrami was a fucking dick, and this other dude wasn't so much. He was a little bit standoffish and unhelpful at the beginning, and then very quickly warmed to like Deanna Troi and was like, did I ever tell you about the time that I found like that? It's like, he was just totally different from Kolrami, which I loved.
Yeah, same. I completely agree with all of that. And I did think like he was kind of a douchebag, but just the beginning. And then he seemed like a harmless douchebag. Like, he wasn't actively trying to hurt anybody. It's just like what Troy said. He's the king of his dominion, and he wants some respect, and that is all. And who can't relate to that? So we go to this like junkyard and discover that the array is gone, and that there's a whole ship that's missing as well. And so they're kind of like, what the heck is going on? So they lie in wait. They power down the whole Enterprise to make it look like it's a ship. It's a derelict ship, which I again called BS on, because I was like, anybody who knows anything about junkyards is never going to believe that just because your lights are off, that is a derelict ship in a junkyard. No one's going to believe that looking at the Enterprise. Y'all got a scratch on you. You're not missing any bit of your hull. Like, nothing.
Yeah,
but
every other ship in there is like a blasted. It looks like they just set up a junkyard where the remnants of Wolf 359 happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Like exploded parts and just a little bit of like a nacelle and a little bit of a saucer section. And here you have this like showroom
Pristine.
new pristine ship.
Flagship
That's
with its
just
lights
got
off.
some lights off. It's like,
Yeah. But
Okay.
apparently these thieves are not that clever because they run right into the trap. As soon as they show up, they turn on the lights and they go, gotcha. And they're like, all right, you guys, we know you guys are stealing materials and we want to know what's up. So this ship, even though to me it looked kind of small, maybe I needed to see, which they didn't do. I needed to see like a comparison between that ship
it
and
did
the
seem
Enterprise.
really small. Yeah.
It looked really small,
Mhm.
but then Worf was like, their armaments are comparable to our own. Like they have the same firepower we have. So if we get in a fight, we don't know who's going to win. I thought that was really interesting.
Mhm.
We didn't even get a chance to get into a fight. They shot it. They fired a few times at the Enterprise. The Enterprise fired one warning shot to take out one weapons array
At 75% power, by the way.
but because the ship was full of explodey stuff, the whole ship exploded. So we never got to the bottom of that mystery. Maybe we do in the second half, but guess what? We don't really care. We don't really care about any of this.
Yeah,
None
I'm
of this matters
who was
at all.
that? What were they doing here? Why are they stealing parts of a ship from a junkyard? These and other mysteries won't be solved because we don't give a fuck. Like,
Yep.
The
The
part of me that
end.
wants answers to everything is like, well, I still want to know, but it's like, but does it matter? No, it doesn't. I literally have no idea what happens in Unification Part 2 because again, I haven't seen it in like 20 years, nor do I care. Nor do I care. So no,
they might turn
explodes
it
and
around
that's
in the
that.
second episode. Who knows? You might be like, oh, now it all makes sense and it's so interesting. But
I mean, it will. It will make sense. Will it be interesting? Probably not. But I will say something I can't stand about the Enterprise is that its shields suck so bad. Like there isn't one effing fight that they're in where like they don't get one phaser shot to their bow and suddenly shields are down to 41% and then they get two shots and shields are down to 8% and then you shoot 3 times. Like here's the rule. It's the rule of 3. You have to shoot at the Enterprise 3 times and you can just breach the hull. It's like, what the F? You guys are the flagship. Let me say that again. The flagship, and you take 3 shots from like a Ferengi fucking junk boat and like you get, now they can hit the hull? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why are your shields so shitty all the time?
That's a really good point. And the ship, we don't even know what this mystery ship was. It had no markings. All of it's like,
yeah, it was flying.
Codes
no
were
flag.
turned off. Yeah, it was flying no flags, which was super interesting. So there's a game I play on my virtual reality headset that is a Star Trek game where you're like in charge of a ship and you go on battles and whatever. And there's these little like mini missions, and one of the missions is fighting the Klingons. But like your ship, when it gets hit, you have to actually take system power to repair that damage, like the shield.
That's cool. I want to play that game.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard.
I don't have an
Andrea.
Oculus, but I really want to play that
It's
game.
so hard. So like,
can you just bring it over one time?
I can. I absolutely. So you can like recharge your shields, but then when you're recharging your shields, you're not recharging your engines, or like you're fixing your engines, but then you can't fix your comms or whatever.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there watching it like do, and you're like, come on, the Klingons are firing. Come on, shields, come on. And then you see like parts of the bridge start like catching fire. If you're not like repairing
oh my god!
And as it's getting hit, you hear it like pew pew pew, and the ship is like shaking, and you're like fire. And then if your shields are down, the ship explodes. And what the game does is it like zooms you out of the ship, so you're looking at your ship from space, and
exploding.
You just see it go pop pop pop, boom, yep, and it explodes, and you're like, oh. The game starts.
Computer over. Start again. Yeah.
Restart simulation. Again. Let me tell you, I have never beat that particular mini game. Like the Klingons kicked my butt in that one. Anyways.
Well, maybe if Starfleet had given us some better shield technology, we wouldn't be in this whole problem. Okay, well, that's the end of the B plot. Now the A plot, which might as well be a B plot because we also don't care about that.
Yeah. The B prime plot.
We are so nerdy. Welcome to Calculus, the Star Trek edition. Yes, the B prime plot is that now, Sarek is dying. Picard never got to tell him really like what he was there to tell him, where it's like, we think that your son defected. No, actually he did. He did tell Sarek, like, we think Spock might have defected. And Sarek said, well, we were all thinking never. He never would do that, right?
He never would do that. The end.
Yeah, we need to cross the neutral zone. And the Federation is like, well, we need a ship with cloaking capabilities. So let's reach out to our good friend Gowron, who we just helped install on the throne a couple of weeks ago.
For
and as a thank you, yeah, we're going to go ahead and just request a ship that has cloaking capabilities so we can get into Romulan space.
Which is like any of their ships.
Yep. And Gowron is being a dick and just leaving them on read. He's leaving them on read. Turns out that Gowron has been rewriting history, and there's no mention of the Federation ship coming to help at all during this Klingon civil war. And they're like, is there anybody else we know who can lend us a ship? And I was like, dang, that must be nice to have like this many people that you know that all have cloaky ships.
I mean, it just any Klingons, all Klingon ships have cloaking technology.
Yeah.
So if they have a single ally like Kern, right? Worf's brother, that's a handy ally right there to be like, hey, can we just borrow your ship?
Yeah.
But
as far as we know, Kern's on his way to visit Armis on Vagra too, because I don't think we ever really see him again. So he's like way off. And this Klingon secretary responds to the Enterprise to let them know that Gowron is he's just too busy to come to the phone right now. And he just has too much on his plate and he cannot help them. And this is where I would fail completely as a diplomat, but Picard is a master at this. He says it so nicely when he lays out the terms of his request, and they're like, you want a ship with cloaking abilities. That's kind of a big ask. We can't give you that. And Picard is like, well, you would have my gratitude. You would have the Federation's gratitude. And the secretary's like, that's it, your gratitude? Picard's like, well, if you can't help us, I'm sure we can find some other Klingons who can help us, and then they would have the Federation's gratitude. And also pass along a message to your boss that he's doing great work at being the High Counselor, wink, wink. And the secretary's like, and gets off the screen immediately.
And suddenly there's a ship with his compliments that just shows up. Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, waiting for Picard to go off or something. I liked his very subtle threat because it's right. He's absolutely right. Like, and that was just a beautiful threat too, to be like, yeah, we backed you, but we could just back somebody else. And you know how that turned out, for Gowron to be like, okay, a ship's on its way.
How would Gowron do it?
It's on its way.
That's a very good Klingon. Yeah.
Thanks,
so he sends a Klingon ship and they head to Romulus. And the Klingon captain is like, I don't want to be here.
He's just
another dick.
This was just like I don't understand this character. Like, I don't understand the choice of creating this character. He was just antagonistic. He was kind of like a bully. He just like got off on trying to piss Picard off. And I don't understand it. I was waiting for Picard to smack him. I was waiting for Picard to curse at him in Klingon. I was waiting for Picard to be a little more Klingon, because usually that's what people who are in on the
bullies respond to muscle. Yeah.
And people who get along well with Klingons usually know how to pretend to be Klingon. Like, they know how to get respect. And he just kept being like, oh no, this is fine. Oh yes, this is wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for your hospitality. And I was like, has he forgotten everything that he knew as like Kempek's whatever?
Well, the arbiter.
And as Worf's whatever, like he's been a part of the culture, and he just was dropping the ball to me.
See, I disagree with you on that. I think that the Klingon was very passive aggressively trying to make Picard uncomfortable. And Picard was like, okay, two can play at that game. I'm not going to show any discomfort. Where the captain's like, you'll have to sleep on this hard bed. We don't put any pads on our bed. And he was like, great, I prefer it that way. And you'll have to eat with us. We don't serve Federation food. Picard's like, I haven't had gach in years. Very fresh. Looking forward to it. Like, when people try to make me uncomfortable, that's when I'm like, I'm just going to show you just how comfortable I can be. And then after a while, that Klingon is like, and just like takes off. It's like, cool. Okay. But I could see why you would want to muscle as well. But I also get that.
I get that.
Picard is just going to not stop smiling. He's like, this is all great. He wasn't trying to placate the Klingon. I think he was just he was playing a game of chess with him. Where the Klingon is like, well, we're going to take away your pillows too. And he's like, good. I have neck problems that don't even let me use pillows. So you know what? Why don't I just sleep in the cargo bay floor? Like, it's fine.
I will say this, like, I agree with you. I do like how he played it. But in the very beginning, when he was talking and the captain was being so disrespectful of like, why should I take you? And I don't feel like going there and blah, blah, blah. I was waiting for Picard to be like, you'll do as you're told or something. And he didn't. And then at the end, when they go to Romulus and he's like, look at you, you're going to be captured. You don't even look convincing. And he's just like taunting them. I was just like, let's just wrap this up. Like, I was waiting for Picard to be like, okay,
we're done now. Yeah.
And then like, let's go. But anyways, I agree with you. I think he did play it the right way when they were in this inside of the quarters. And I did like that scene. That's probably the only scene that I enjoyed in the episode was Data was just staring at Picard while he was sleeping. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing. He's like, why are you looking at me? I'm not, I'm just looking in your direction. But I will look away. And then he like really slowly turns and Picard
keeps his eyes on Picard, but moves his torso. And then at the last second moves his head to look the way his torso is looking. And I was like, okay. And I love that Picard's like, you know what? I'm not even tired. We don't need to sleep right now. It's fine.
It's like, let's just get to work. Like,
yeah.
I was like, y'all
sleep. I need a pad to sleep on anyway. And I'm just on a metal shelf. So let's not even act like I'm going to get any sleep.
You can take the shelf.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
that is really funny.
That was probably the only scene in this whole episode that I enjoyed.
I did like seeing the surgically altered Data in Picard.
Yes, I did. I mean, that was the only scene I enjoyed. I did love the surgically altered Data and Picard. Oh my gosh, great. This is our first time seeing Data without all the gold paint on him.
Yes.
As he's playing Data.
He was painted in gold, but it translated on screen to like shimmery white.
Yeah.
So it's too bad that the gold didn't come through all the way.
I don't know how that happened.
Well, I don't know how that happened, but I'm actually glad it did because I'm afraid he would have looked a little too much like C-3PO or something where it's like, he just ends up looking like 3PO. I'm like,
He 100% would have. So I'm glad that he looked the way he looked, but I've just heard him say so many times I was painted in gold everywhere. And I'm always like,
but you're in like pearlescent white.
Yeah. And I thought, did they put white on top of the gold? But no,
I don't think so. And I think that's the magic of like working in that industry where you have to know how colors translate on screen because you can't wear like a blue shirt and have it look blue. Actually, I've spoken several times about that really dope jacket that Picard wears, the like red, suede one with the shoulders. And underneath he's wearing what looks to be a gray, just like Starfleet uniform top, but it's actually blue. I've seen other pictures of it and I've seen it described as like, this is the first time that Picard wears like the blue shirt with the red jacket over. And I was like, what? Because it's totally gray on my screen.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the way color translation, it feels like I'm learning to do pottery. And like when you're glazing, I can glaze something in black, but it's not black when you glaze it. It only fires black in the kiln. So it could be like powdery white looking. And then you have to paint, if you want to paint like flowers or something, you're doing some yellow or some red, but it looks like gray and brown and blue. And then when you fire it, it comes out totally different. So like just color translation is really cool. It's really cool. Yeah.
It's science. Yeah.
It is science.
I love seeing them. And and the Romulans have a little bit of a tone to their skin that's a little bit off of natural skin tones that we usually see.
It's a little like peachier or something.
Or like orangey or something.
Yes.
But I love this part. Like Brent Spiner looked so great. Picard looked so great. And their little like Romulan wigs with the little bangs and and then their huge giant square shoulders.
Cloaks.
I was like, how did they even do square shoulders like that? Like, how did they do those box shoulders? Because I sew. So as I'm thinking of that costume, I'm like, now how would I make but then it stands straight and it was just, that was so,
listeners, Shereese is she's amazing at this. This is not, I love doing hands-on stuff. I've been teaching myself lots of like leather crafting and embroidery and sewing and but in sewing in terms of like embroidery where I like make little flowers or make whatever, but I can't make an outfit. I have no freaking clue how to do that. Nor do I want to know. I'm like, cool, let's just leave that in kind of a neat mystery. But Shereese is over here like deconstruct. She's like, hold on, I'm making my Romulan cloak. I'll get back to you in 2 hours.
Seriously, I literally do that when I go into stores and I see dresses. I'm like, ooh, but how was the closure? Oh, a zipper. Yeah, I would have used a zipper too. Like I totally do that.
A friend of mine showed me who went to fashion, like went to like FIDM, which is the Fashion Institute, and like graduated from there, and he's now doing fashion design and showed me how to make a zipper. And I was like, that looks really complicated, and I do not want to do that. Let me know how that zipper goes. He's like, you need to put the closure here, here, and here because of this. I was like, can I make you a cocktail?
Yeah.
I was like,
you do that, I'll do this.
But those cloaks looked so rad. Like I would want that. The material didn't look like comfy and soft, but if it was made comfy and soft, I would want to curl up with that on like a winter evening. Absolutely cool.
Totally.
And they're trying to find, Part X office, and they're like, oh, his office is closed. We'll just go kind of across the alley.
Just real quick, before they beam down, Captain Kavada gets a message and he's all like, ha ha ha, subspace communication for you, Picard. So you're like, what's he so happy about? And then you read it and it's that Sarek had died.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's really, really sad. And Kavada, you are a dick.
Yeah, you're a dick.
And yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, stick to the gach, buddy. Like,
yeah, for real. So
your public relations not so hot. Yeah.
They're adding to their mission of finding Spock and what the heck is going on. They're adding to it, having to tell Spock that his father has died.
Yeah.
And Picard and Data share this great conversation about family and fatherhood and conflict in families and what it's like, because Data has no reference. I mean, he should, because he's got conflict in his family. His dad is off his rocker. He hasn't met his mom yet, but she's also got a whole issue.
I think his dad, didn't Noonien soon die already?
He did die. He
died.
But while he was alive,
thing and his mom thing, when we meet her, it's
exactly.
Although he doesn't have any emotion, so he's just like, this is interesting.
But he can definitely comprehend some similarities perhaps between what's going on. But he doesn't fully get like the emotional ramifications. So they have this beautiful conversation about family and how it's complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
So that happens. So now they've beamed down. They're looking for Pardek's office so that by finding Pardek, they can find Spock and figure out what's going on with him. And before they get there, Pardek gets called into some random official's office who's just like, Picard, do you know who Picard is? He's on his way. We think he might be coming to see you. And Pardek's just like, I've never met this person before, but like, good to know. He's like, yeah, have the security officers be on the lookout for him everywhere. And he's like, yes, sorry, I will. When they showed a picture of Picard kind of in his standard Starfleet uniform. It looks like he was straight out of the Starfleet yearbook. And I thought to myself, because as before he left, the other guy was like, he may be disguised as one of us. He probably is, because of course everyone's going to recognize a human walking around on freaking Romulus.
On Romulus, of all places. Yeah.
I thought to myself, and I also put this in my notes, well, why did he just show Pardek a picture of Picard as he normally looks? Why didn't they do a computer mock-up of what he would look like as a Romulan and pass that around?
Yeah, you're right.
And again, I thought, well, is this like a computer?
So much better. Yeah.
It would make sense. If
great.
That's what
Here's a picture of what this kid normally looks like, but it's Halloween and they're going to be in costume and wig. So you're like, but
I thought to myself, like, surely their computers had the capacity to do that, because even in the 90s, police sketch people could do this all the time. And I think they already had the technology even back then and police headquarters to be like, what would they look like with a beard or without a mustache or with red hair or green hair? Like, they do that when there's some criminal on the loose. They put a whole bunch of pictures out with all the different like haircuts and hairstyles that they might have so that you could recognize them. So I thought to myself, why wouldn't he show all the security people what Picard looks like as a Romulan? Because it's the only way you're going to see him. You're not going to see him looking the way Picard looks. So that was my only little gripe about that scene, is I was like,
you're right. Okay. Now,
you're right. Picking gnats though, because the whole episode as a whole was kind of like, not worth this. The whole thing.
No, it wasn't worth that level of like investment. Yeah. But yeah, so Picard and Data find Pardek's office closed. They stop off at a little cantina across the alley to like wait. And Romulan soldiers are on
lunch ever.
Yeah. Some soup that looked nasty.
And that was just like, who are you? Are you the secret police? I'm a loyal subject. I just thought, I was like, must suck to live in a community like this. This must super suck, because you can't even have lunch.
It felt, if I had to draw parallels, it felt very like North Korea, where it's like you constantly have to prove your loyalty. And watch your back, where it's like, oh God. Now soldiers are onto them really quickly and scoop them up to take them away to like a black site. And I gotta say,
after like 2 bites of soup.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if Picard was disgusted by that soup, but he loves gach, how bad was that soup? How bad was that shit? If he's like, and Data's like, you might
basically earthworms.
It's just worms that are like still live and still have a lot of dirt on them.
Gross.
Yeah. So anyway, Picard in this black site is like, Pardek is like, we don't mean to alarm you. We just have to get you off the streets. We want to talk to you, which I'm like, maybe don't take me to a black site and point guns at me and then be like, don't feel threatened.
But I feel like that was also a good idea for them to take the two of them by gunpoint, because that's exactly what people in that society would expect to see.
Yes.
And that is exactly what would make them all look away. They'd be like, they're taking another one. Look away.
Look right about that.
Look down at your food. Don't look too hard at them.
Oh my God,
you don't want to get taken to. So I thought to myself, like, that was actually the perfect way to take them off the streets in a way that no one would ask questions, no one would think twice, and no one would talk about it.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right about that.
But from their perspective, I'm not gonna trust you if you're holding me at gunpoint in a freaking cave.
Exactly. Picard says, he's like, I'm on an urgent mission to find Ambassador Spock. And a voice says, "You found him, Captain." And then a man comes out of the shadows and it's Spock. And I wrote on my notes, bum, bum, bum. That's the ending. That's it. It goes black and it says to be continued. And you're like, oh, okay.
And I don't know why I don't know why that would have been exciting at all, because we know he's going to find Spock. That's the whole reason they're on Romulus.
I mean, you may not expect him to find Spock right at that moment, but like, he's there to find Spock. And if Star Trek tells us anything, if you're looking for one needle in a haystack, you're going to beam down to the most direct coordinates where that needle is. So it's like, okay. If they're like, oh, he's on another continent, it's like, damn it, we like came to the wrong location. And now we're gonna have to get a shuttle or some sort of, Han Solo's gonna have to, smuggle us to some other part of the planet. But it's like, no, you went right to the right location. So you found him. Okay.
It's like, where's Waldo when there's only Waldo? He's the only one in the picture.
In an empty room.
He's right there. We found him.
So,
but we knew we were going to find him because that's the name of the book. Yeah. Like we knew that. We knew it.
My final thoughts, which I started with at the top of the episode, are slow, boring, unclear, and slow again. So that's it. How about you?
What I put was, while there is certainly a mystery here, why did Spock go to Romulus? I'm just not hooked by this story. I don't care about what's going on. And I certainly don't care enough to have a sequel. I am unenthusiastically looking forward to next week.
Yes.
To have to get to do this all over again.
Yeah.
But I did see the little thumbnail preview, and it looks like Sela comes back, which is Yar's half Romulan
Sela
daughter.
Comes back?
Yeah, she comes back.
We see Sela again? Okay, cool.
She's a part of this. And you and I talked before in the episode when she was revealed, where we were like, we thought she died, but I guess she didn't die. And I don't think she comes back. So apparently she comes back, and maybe she dies. Maybe that's why we thought she dies. Maybe she dies in the next episode. I don't know. But I do know her character is awesome and interesting. So maybe mixing her in with mixing in Spock and mixing in Picard and Data as Romulans, maybe that combination or that cocktail will make part 2 actually an interesting episode.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That could be. So I didn't know that Sela comes back in this episode. I did after we did our review of Redemption Part 2, and we see Sela and she gives her whole story about how she's Yar's daughter from that alternate timeline. And like you and I both had said, like, I don't think we ever see her again, which makes her departure kind of like anticlimactic. Absolutely. But we did talk after, and we were like, oh, I guess she does come back later on, which I was like, okay, cool. I look forward to that. But I also look forward to it just enough to see her storyline wrap up in some sort of satisfying way and then be done with her.
Yeah.
So we do have to get through Unification Part 2. But guess what? The week after that, we're doing A Matter of Time, which is like that time traveler who comes back and is stealing shit everywhere. That's a really fun episode. So guys, this is where the episode ends, and we're really happy to be done with it. Next week, we're talking season 5, episode 8, Unification Part 2, the stunning conclusion to this major cliffhanger that everybody's so concerned about, or not. And thanks so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.